Three straight winners on three straight shows. We are rolling on the Pick 'em Power Hour, and we're back. It's an ugly game coming up on Thursday, but no problem for us. We're going to find a way to get you winners. This is the Player Profiler Pick 'em Power Hour, brought to you by Underdog. Welcome back to the Player Profiler Pick 'em Power Hour. We're your hosts, Ahaan Rungta, Trevor Tipton, back from a Week 8 that was probably our most successful overall on the show. We got a winner from you, Trevor, at the end of Week 7. We got a Sunday winner from you, and then we brought that right into Week 8. We got back in the win column with our collab with Dalton Kincaid and Rashad White, and we talked about that last week. And then I finally picked the right ones on Sunday. It finally happened. If you don't have the Underdog pick generator, you could get that in the DFS Dominator, which is currently only $85 for the full package. And you could go to the DFS Dominator on PlayerProfiler.com and head over to the Underdog pick generator part of the DFS Dominator and get early leans for Sunday. And this week we went 8-5 on those leans, and most of the green check marks were by you. But I flipped the script this week, and I actually picked my greens for the show, which was cool, with Devontae Smith. And all that green at the bottom, a lot of that is you. Shout out Thielen. You picked him as well. What were your general thoughts on the week? Any takeaways you had?
Mahomes getting sick was the bummer for us, right? Like, it was – I think we're in a really good spot if Mahomes doesn't get sick there. It showed in the game. He looked off. KC looked off. I think multiple players were sick, and they have to not be able to throw on that Denver team, because I was sure sick watching that, knowing how that went. This was a weird week last week. The Eagles continue to look really good. That was impressive to see. Obviously, I'll let you talk about our rookie QB debut. Overall, we're continuing to see players. Some of the players are who we think we are. And then, injury Mageddon season continues, right? We lose Cousins for the season now, Jordan Addison was starting to ball out. So that was kind of depressing. I mean, I like that they traded for Dobbs, but I don't know that Dobbs is better than Keenum. I actually think Keenum for fantasy is a better option than Dobbs, in my opinion. But I mean, 6 in one hand, half dozen in another. Like, is there really much difference at this point in their careers? But again, lots of injuries. An okay trade line, great trade deadline for my Niners. We again to school the Bears on draft picks. Like, they give up. I mean, Montez is great. That's what you want a second-round D lineman to be, but they give up a second, and we get Chase Young for a third. You cannot draft unless it is just a very big outlier. I'm actually going to do this. Now I'm going to look. But could you go draft a player like Chase Young? Has there ever been a DN like that drafted in the third round of the NFL? I don't know if there has been.
Yeah, and it's been completely opposite, emotionally for us watching this season as fans, because I'm a Patriots fan, and it doesn't get more frustrating than watching the worst offensive line in football, coupled with the worst wide receiver group in football, coupled with a coaching staff that lives in the 17th century. So I'm happy for you. You see that the crying underneath the smiling mask meme. I'm happy for you. You can stack up more on that 49ers roster. But trade deadline wise, I think I want to tie back in to the Kansas City Chiefs, since they disappointed us with the passing yards last week. Nothing you could do. You can't predict that Mahomes was sick. I want to point out that Mahomes still actually played well. I mean, relative to the average quarterback, but it's Patrick Mahomes, so we expect him to pull everything out of what. But I want to bring up that I'm gonna do a short thread on the trade deadline later tonight. You're listening to this later. This is Wednesday.
That none of his receivers can catch, and it actually cost us our hire because he still had 250 yards when they dropped a zillion balls.
Exactly. So he still got to the 250s. We needed 276,
Yeah.
and Sky Moore dropped what would have been a touchdown, which
Yeah.
would have gotten us to the 276 to end the game effectively. And that summarized to me why I think this may be the year. And it sounds weird to say that I'm quote unquote counting out Patrick Mahomes. I am shocked that they were passive at the trade deadline, because the fact that they didn't go out and get a receiver that's not Rashi Rice or Travis Kelsey, that is at least league average. The fact that they didn't add some kind of help is alarming to me. And we saw in that game a couple weeks ago, I said on Wake and Take that you might see the Chiefs lose outright to a divisional opponent like the Chargers, and that will prompt them to go get a receiver, because it'll be a wake up call that this offense is about as poor as it can be in a roster where you have Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes. Right? They've constructed about as bad of an offense as you can, given that you have those two guys. And I was a little early on the Chargers upset call, but we got the Broncos upset, right? And to me, it's very alarming that they didn't add more help. And personally, I think the Bills and the Ravens, now that the trade deadline has passed, those two are in a class of their own in the AFC. And I think one of them will face your 49ers in the Super Bowl. But that's looking very far ahead. We're here to talk pick'ems. We're coming off this plus 500 winner from last week. It's I covered some ground, right? With I've been behind with these winners, but a 5x payout one will certainly help chip away at this. So shout out to the Cowboys, by the way, who've only played in one normal game script all year long, despite the huge blowout. We still got the Puka Nakua lower. And then shout out the Eagles as well against the Commanders' sorry ass secondary. So we're coming off that winner. And we're about to talk week 9 and everything that we need to talk about in this ugly looking game. Shout out to Chef TPD who has been joining us in chat the last few shows. We're ready to win some money today, and it involves a rookie that may have been the number one storyline of week 8, the Sunday slate. But before we get into this slate, find some winners, let's hear a word from the Podfather.
Now, as we at Player Profiler have become a full-blown machine learning company, the crowning achievement has to be the injury finder. We're now taking BMI data and injury history data and assigning a probability that a player is injured on any given touch. And not only can you see a player's fragility rating, their injury risk, we also have analysis from professional physical therapists breaking down all the major players that underwent surgery last year and what their rehabilitation looks like heading into 2023. There's a tool to compare players. There's a database where you can say, show me all the foot injuries, show me all the severe injuries, show me all the injuries requiring surgery. It provides you the key market intelligence to know what is the difference in probability that player X versus player Y will miss games this year. It's great for fantasy football, and it also just satisfies your curiosity as a fan. Go to the App Store, go to Google Play, download it. It's $5 every year just to reload the latest injury predictions and fragility ratings. The 2023 data is live now. Open your phone and get smarter.
We are back on the Pick and Power Hour, where we talked about some Week 8 winners. We talked about the Chiefs. Jeff says, "I hope the Chiefs aren't going to start doing to Green Bay what Green Bay did to Aaron and send him out of here with worse and worse talent." My take is that they're gonna figure it out next year, and they're gonna figure out that you can't get through a playoff run with Justin Watson, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. But enough Chiefs rants for right now. We're gonna find some winners for Week 9, and the headliner for this game is the headliner for Week 8, which is William Donald Levis. And shout out to our old friend Cody Carpentier, now working elsewhere, but used to be a friend of the program of Player Profiler. And Cody and I were some of the two loudest people in the room for this draft class when it came to what is up with Will Levis. And Cody deserves all his flowers for pushing this, this agenda live on the Player Profiler draft party. And I remember, Matt and Cody going back and forth about the quarterbacks, and Cody just outright saying Will Levis had nothing go right for him in college. He has everything it takes to be a stud in the NFL. Now, it's just one game. We realize that he's not going to throw 4 touchdowns for a gazillion yards every week. But I will say this is what we saw in week 8 confirms some of our priors. Number one, the arm talent, undeniable. If you look at those touchdown bombs, some of them open throws, of course. But is Ryan Tannehill making those open throws? He hasn't been so far, right? And I think this is also a good time to semi-victory lap right before the Titans bye week. Jason Allwine asked me to host Wake and Take, and I went off for maybe 3 minutes straight on the Tennessee Titans and what they need to do this season. The headliner being, you got to start Will Levis. You got to see what he has, because Malik Willis, we know, is not the answer. Now we have it. Will Levis is here. He's starting in week 9 for sure as well, and probably the rest of the season. This about wraps it up in terms of where the Titans' future is at quarterback for the time being. But he does face a semi-tough Pittsburgh defense. And Trevor, just your bird's eye view of this game, and maybe describe how tough it is to find winners in this, why lines are maybe so sharp before we start getting into what we've found.
Yeah, I mean, this is a gross game. It's a primetime game that I'm just, as I was digging through everything, I'm just like, we're looking for edges, right? We're looking for places, with players that we can try to find what we believe is an edge. And there's just not a lot. There's a lot of unknowns. Obviously, we had, Pickett go down last week. Levis shows up. I hope, as you said, that Levis stays in the rest of the season and gets the reps, and that Vrabel's a guy that, would anybody be shocked if he went back to Tannehill? No, because that's who Vrabel is. I think it would be a terrible decision. The thing I've always liked about Levis is his release. He has that stupid hitch that I don't like, but he has, his release is so fast, it makes up for that hitch. That little shoulder hitch he does, which is like trying to do a pump fake, but that doesn't work in the NFL. That little pump fake needs to stop. But again, he gets the ball out of his hands so quick. I like it there. This game for me is either going to be 13-10 or 47-42. I don't see either. I don't see the game going either way for us. And unfortunately, underdog has Watt, we can't get Watt sacks. There's some stuff I'd like to see underdog have for this game that we don't have right now. But I think we found some stuff that we can produce another winner here. Actually, now as I'm digging into it, I like this edge a little bit here, and we'll talk about it why. But as you said, yourself and Cody were definitely two believers. For me, it was Levis was a landing spot that mattered. So I'm interested to see how they coach him going forward.
Absolutely, and Mike Vrabel to me is a good coach, and like you said, this kind of game it can be ugly for so many reasons. But one of the reasons is just because it might just be like the two head coaches just outthinking all of us and doing things that none of us expect. Right on paper, you look at this matchup. People were very low on the Titans last week because it wasn't a popular opinion that Will Levis is ready for the NFL. I almost, and I only my close friends know this, and because I didn't publicize this anywhere, but I almost picked the Titans for Survivor last week. That's how confident I was. Yeah, well, it's week 8. You have to kind of dig in your bag when you've used the 49ers, the Ravens, etc. Kind of have to dig deep in your bag. I was so close to picking the Titans, and then I saw that Malik Willis was going to be rotated in platooned, and I was like, yeah, definitely can't do that. I still survived, waited till the lines on Monday Night Football, a little bit sweaty. But now the public is starting to be like, okay, maybe Levis is actually legit. And you see where this line has been hovering around on some books. Steelers opened as 3-point favorites. Now they're only 2.5-point favorites. And these are two rosters that are both, if this was not a primetime game, I wouldn't be necessarily running to the books to bet something in this game. But the pick that I have for underdog is something that I do like, regardless of the fact that it is primetime. So the Steelers are slight favorites in this matchup. The total is 36.5. Unsurprisingly, that's the lowest in week 9, and we're getting this on Thursday. So the books don't think there's going to be a lot of offense. It's starting to get chilly as well. And we know Will Levis loves to and can air it out. And I'm going to get started with our card for Thursday Night Football with that transition, which is I'm going back to Will Levis, and I'm taking his higher 202.5 passing yards. Now, something that you kind of have to look at when projections are very low or absurdly high for some reason is why are they set there, and if it's a veteran, like if it's a Patrick Mahomes or if it's a Jalen Hurts or even if it's a Kenny Pickett, where we have seen him in this offense for a decent amount of time, you kind of have to ask yourself, why is this line so low? But I'm not going to overthink this because I think this is just a case of the the books and the pick'em boards. They can't set this line very high because it's still a rookie in his second NFL start against a defense that has a good reputation, right? So I don't think this line can be set much higher. So I think it's low, and I'm just going to keep taking advantage until the books realize that he can throw the ball. So Levis, again, recapping what he can do. So he was the number 3 in the class in athleticism score. He can use his legs a little bit, but I don't think that'll be super necessary or super warranted in this matchup. He's a good athlete, with the 88th percentile burst score, etc. But the arm talent is really where it's at, and we saw he was connecting on pretty much every deep ball to DeAndre Hopkins. And also, another thing I liked about Will Levis at his debut is he's using the good players, right? Chig Okonkwo was a guy I was very high on this offseason relative to ADP just because I thought, well, he's a yak monster, and if at tight end you can't get the top tier, go get a good athlete. And I thought that he would get a lot of action in the middle of the field. Chig Okonkwo was tied for the team lead with 6 targets, so I like that Will Levis was targeting him. So Will Levis did a lot of good things in my book, and I can see why. If you look at the player profile projections for this week, Dario and Billy have him projected for 249 passing yards. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been below average in a lot of defensive metrics this year, and it sounds surprising to say, other than the pass rush, which is still, just slightly above average, thanks to TJ Watt and company. Coverage rating, if you look at PFF coverage grade, the Falcons, who Will Levis faced last week, ranked number 9, and the Steelers ranked number 21. The Steelers also haven't been great at stopping the run, so maybe they work a little more through Derrick Henry, especially with this low total, but the books are accounting for that. I think regardless of game score, Will Levis is going to have to pass the ball and take advantage of the fact that the Steelers have given up a lot of big plays. He can get kind of quarter of the way through this, 30% of the way through this with just a few passes. That's how good his arm is. And if you believe in the fact that the Titans are going to, actually play from behind this time, and Mike Tomlin's going to play from ahead at home, as he should against a rookie quarterback, if you're a believer in that, that's all the more reason to take the higher on this, because Will Levis is going to have to pass the ball in a negative game script. Perhaps in garbage time we can clear this. So I don't think they could just ride Derrick Henry to the ground here. Derrick Henry is not that kind of a player anymore, and they don't need to. They're going to see what they have with Will Levis here. I think 2.5 is way too low, and there's a reason we have it projected 249. I've talked a lot, but I've gotten off my chest what I had to say about Will Levis. I don't think we're ever going to see this line at around this 200 mark again.
Yeah, I don't see that being there in the future. Like, that would be like super shocking to me, just moving forward. So, and what I will say, I'll give people a little bonus here. I think it's going to be, we're going to see some Mr. Spears action. I can see a couple design passes to him from Levis. I like him. I like Tajay in this game. I think they start rolling him in more. It'll be interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, I really like the concept of the backup running back, especially a backup to an aging veteran like Derrick Henry, right? We attacked Elijah Mitchell a few weeks ago, and he was a backup to not an aging veteran at all. Christian McCaffrey, still in the middle of his prime, but definitely to Derrick Henry, I like the idea of attacking the backup. It's a great call.
Yeah, so we got to go to the other side. We got to, unfortunately, we have to pick one from each team, because otherwise I would probably just stack Tajay and move on. That being said, what don't you do against the Titans? You don't run. So we're not touching Najee. We're not touching Warren. we're going to the passing game, and we're actually going to go to George Pickens instead of Deontay. So Deontay coming back has actually been a huge boost to Pickens. If you go through and really start digging through the data, look at what's happened to Pickens since he came back in week 5. Pickens had an ADOT of only 14, but Pickens had an ADOT of 14 yards while Deontay was hurt. It's up to 17.7 now that he's back. Why is that? Well, they have to cover Deontay too. They can't just focus on Pickens anymore. He has a staggering 21.5 yards per route run. That's a league leading elite stat. Against the Ravens, who are very good in the secondary, I mean, he went 6 for 10 for 130, and then against the Rams, he went 5 for 8 for 107. Last week, obviously, Mitch coming in, that wasn't a good game. But that being said, we are seeing an increased ability for Pickens, 1, to get one-on-one, and 2, to get open in zone coverage. And as we know, what do? We target the Titans secondary. We do not try to run on them. And then he also is leading the team in yak now since Deontay's back. So those are all things I want to see. And I want a game where if we get this right, and then Levis is throwing for 250, that means Pittsburgh's trying to play catch up, right? Pittsburgh's trying to keep up with them. And we want that. That means there's going to be more targets for Pickens. We want points in this game. We want, pass rate over expectation. And we actually model this line at 70 this week. So if you're going to model it at 70, we got it at 52.5. And I like who he's going against this week. He's probably going to see a lot of Montrek Brown, which, in that scheme of things, he's going to beat him. So as most people have this season, and as long as Pickett is 90% healthy, I like this line. Hopefully we get him closer to 100%, and that gives us some upside in this game. Unfortunately, pour one out for A-Rob. They took his yards all the way down to 14.5. Otherwise, we would be on his lower again.
Yeah, I like the concept of going to Pickens here, and Tennessee is a defense that I've targeted before as the pass funnel that they are. Kevin Byard also gone, by the way, in Philly now. So I really like targeting, no pun intended. I like targeting Pickens here, and Pickens is kind of like in the past. It's not a perfect comparison, I know. Don't quote me on this, but I've kind of called him the Zeke of wide receivers before, just because he could be super inefficient and still, just run into the end zone once and make fantasy managers like somewhat happy when you leave the game. This is a guy that could just get a couple of big plays out of nowhere, and Tennessee is certainly the defense that you can do that against. And so we don't even need the volume. We don't need him to separate all day the way Deontay Johnson does. And you see Deontay Johnson at 5 receptions. And on the Steelers side, I really, I looked to Trevor asking for help for this because I really didn't want to take anybody on the Steelers. And I was like, all these projections are super sharp. But if I had to lean one way, I would take Deontay Johnson receptions. But it's at 5 and there's push potential. He needs 6 to go over, and it's tricky. And also, I definitely wouldn't be taking his receiving yards because I think that's even sharper. But Pickens, I like that his receiving yards lower than Deontay Johnson. He doesn't need volume to get there. So I like that approach for sure. Let's lock it in for half a unit as usual. Let's try to go for 4 straight winners on 4 straight shows. Let's go Levis higher than 202.5 passing yards. George Pickens higher than 52.5 receiving yards. We are locked and loaded for Week 9 Thursday Night Football, where we also have some questions from chat. BJN says, thoughts on Treylon Burks moving forward for Will Levis? I am concerned because I saw, Treylon Burks was someone who I thought from eye test / watching college football, he was very, very good in college. Then we did the breakout finder and we ran the numbers. We ran our model, and Treylon Burks, where no bias when you're running the model, right? And Treylon Burks rated as pretty good. And here we are. Treylon Burks has gone through injuries, has gone through quarterback roulette, and 2 targets, no receptions, with Will Levis airing the ball out, throwing 4 touchdowns. Massively concerning. I think Traylon Burks is one of those you buy low in Dynasty if you can, and I've given up on him for redraft. What do you think?
I'm in the same boat. So I had a lot of Burks last year. Helped in best ball, right? He had those, he had some weeks that were really nice. But Will Levis went, oh, I have one of the best receivers in football. I'm going to get him the ball because he can separate and he can make insane catches and he catches everything that is thrown his way as he has his whole career. I dropped Burks 2 weeks ago in season long. I didn't have a ton of exposure this year, but the little bit I had, I went cutthroat on him, made an early drop. I'm a lot more aggressive when it comes to that than some players. It burns me 10% of the time that I cut a guy too soon, but a lot of times I'm out. Like season long, I'm trying to turn and burn. I want guys for the week. Do I hate going after him in Dynasty? No, because what if you can get him for nothing right now, right? You can go get him dirt cheap, especially if a guy's got him on a contending team and he's trying to win. You can probably get him for a guy with any reasonable playing time. And in the off season, does he go and work with Will and then they develop rapport and is there upside there? Sure. Like if I'm coming from a dynasty perspective, I don't hate trying to buy him dirt cheap. But from a redraft perspective, like I said, I cut him 2 weeks ago. So he got thrown back into the ocean on my fantasy teams.
Yeah, all for buying low on talent though, and I think Traylon Burks definitely has that when it comes to dynasty. Chef says I didn't know you could play only 2 picks for Pick'em. So if you are new to Pick'ems on Underdog, you can play anywhere between 2 to 5 picks, and if you play 2 picks, they have to be on different teams like we just did. So for example, one Steelers. You don't even have to stay in the same sport, right? You could do one Steelers pick and one. Let's just pick a random NBA thing, right? If you do 2 picks, then you have to, hit both. You go standard and you hit both. And if you do multiple, or if you do more than 2 picks, let's just click on more. If you do multiple picks, like 4 or 5 picks, then you have the option of doing standard, where you have to hit all of your picks for it to pay out, or you go insured, and then if you miss one, you still profit, but the max payout decreases because of that. Maybe not the best expected value to go that way. But yeah, you can do anywhere between 2 to 5 picks. And if you want to tail our picks or make your own, you can join Underdog Fantasy using promo code Underworld. We have another question. Would you trade Kenneth Walker for DeAndre Swift? That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's what are you gaining out of it? Like for me, that's I think roles wise, they both have similar roles. If you've watched Philly's backfield, I actually like Swift's role a little better right now. Gainwell hasn't looked great. They're not going to use Boston Scott. I think Swift's kind of cemented himself as the guy for the Eagles, and he's on what I would consider the better team. Like whenever I see these kind of trades, I always ask, like, what are you trying to get? And you said, hey, gun to your head, I picked the Swift side right now because we see Charbonnet continue to get rolled in, and they're using him. And we've seen Philly in close games now. It's the Swift show. Like they figured out, oh, hey, we have this really good running back, and it was worth the trade we made for him. And he's getting the carries. We've seen him have the breakout games we wanted to see him have with the Lions. But it's also like there's not this major gap. It's this big, right? For me, it's not like this huge thing. It depends on what you're looking for and how your team's set up. But if gun to my head, I take the Swift side, but it's really close for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Kenneth Walker. You think of, well, why would you want to trade an RB for an RB only if the upside is higher? And in a vacuum, you think of Kenneth Walker's role, and ever since he's come to the NFL, he's been like the guy at the goal line. But now they also have a guy, like you said, they're working in a little bit with Charbonnet. And in the case of Swift, the upside is always going to be slightly higher just because he's on a team that could score 7 touchdowns on any given day. And, 2 of them could go to Hurts and 2 of them can go to A.J. Brown, and Swift can still score, right? So for that reason, I will slightly prefer the Swift side, but you could also look at our rankings for that. And then one final question, 2 names that are
Ooh.
despised by certain members of the Player Profiler family.
Spicy.
I will say, Demario Douglas, I kind of hate, and not because I'm a Patriots fan and I don't like him. I actually think he's a solid, one of our rare, decent players. But just I don't believe in I haven't believed in the Patriots offense all season. I don't think you can find any situation where Demario Douglas has the upside where you'll be like, yeah, he's going to go off in the fantasy playoffs. For that reason, I will take Quentin Johnston just because they did try to force feed him the ball last week. Can he get separation? We haven't seen it yet. No, it looks like. Are they trying to force feed it to him in a pass first offense that could be good down the stretch? Yes. So for the upside alone, I will take Quentin Johnston here.
I'm actually going to go the other way. I think when it comes down to close, I think they did it last week. I think in close games, Herbert's going to go to his safety blankets. Herbert's going to Allen. Herbert's going to Eckler. Herbert's going to go to – listen, he likes Gerald Everett. Parham's been great when he's out. I actually think they're going to start running some more 2 tight end sets with Parham and Everett together because, again, Johnston continues to show us what he's not. For me, I want volume, right? I want to target volume. And now in their situation – I think Douglas is going to get the opportunities. I don't think he's going to break. I don't think he's going to break fantasy by any means, but I think his floor is better. Just because with Bourne out, they're going to throw the ball. Somebody has to catch the ball. Like they're going to throw for 175 to 250 a game. Somebody has to catch it, right? And I think it's going to be Douglas. I would actually, me personally. I would go Douglas on the other side, even though I understand Ahaan's thought process, right? Give me the better offense, the guys that are going to be there. For me, it's just I think Douglas is going to end up by like week 12, week 13, surprising some people a little bit, even more like, okay, hey, this kid's got even a little more upside. I picked him up last week or week before. I stashed him everywhere because I'm like, oh, like, listen, if I'm always, here's what I'm looking for, guys, on depth. I'm saying that, hey, if someone goes down, i.e. Christian McCaffrey, right? I have Mason stashed and I'm not letting him go. There are guys I'll turn and burn, i.e., we just talked about that situation, right? I went and, threw somebody that Treylon Burks back in versus Mason White, because if he gets the chance, he's the guy. Now, if Allen goes down, if Eckler goes down, yeah, then Quentin Johnston's got a chance. But I don't see that happening. But those are things I'm trying to look for handcuff wise.
And to give you a sense of how good that question was, they're only separated by a few spots down in the late 60s in the seasonal rankings. So our analytics team also think that's basically a toss-up. And if you want more, start sit questions for weekly rankings or rest of season questions for seasonal rankings, you can go check out our rankings, which is in the description. Trevor, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, like basically what they asked is, would I rather kick like the corner of my bed with like my pinky toe, or would I rather slam my finger in a door? Right?
Both morbid examples.
Because that's how I feel about both those players.
I mean, you're not wrong, but we don't have to say it.
Right. I mean, it's going to hurt, be painful. But, if you got to pick one side, I'm going to try to pick the one that hurts less.
Okay, then. On that note, so shout out, Chef in the chat says, appreciate you. And we appreciate you for watching. Once again, to recap our show, this was the Wednesday show that you're listening to later on, maybe on podcast on Thursday. We just locked in for Thursday Night Football for Week 9. Will Levis higher than 202.5 passing yards, and George Pickens higher than 52.5 receiving yards. And if you want more pick'em entries, if you want more betting content, join us in the Discord. We'll talk some pick'ems. We'll probably each drop a long shot entry, maybe a 5-pick on Thursday night, right before kickoff. Once we get more projections, maybe. And we'll talk betting in the Top Best channel as well if you're into that. And if you want to talk sportsbook betting, you can check out The Juice on Friday night with Memphis Young. A great betting show there. Memphis has been kind of on fire. He was all over Panthers last week to break their winning streak. Shout out to him for that. And we will be back here for more pick'ems for the Week 9 Sunday slate. Same time, but on Friday at 4:30. And that will be the bonus show, only streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So make sure you join us for that. But for now, let's try to make it 4 straight winners on the Pick'em Power Hour with a 2-0 card on Thursday Night Football.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.